elder statesman in the area. But I've lived a lot of my life so far, and I haven't done music professionally the entire time. So I had some time away from it for a good long time, and a lot of musicians end up doing that. Whether it's a career change or the fact that they're working a real job from 9 to 5, 5 days a week. But something like that will fuel you as far as like your desire to play music. So I actually worked in the golf world for a little while, and the dark period of my life was working in the corporate world, and that more than anything made me want to pursue music professionally, and made a outright decision to stay here instead of moving to a larger city to do that, because I wanted to live where I liked living, where it was comfortable. So decided to stay here and ended up doing okay. I'm very happy as a professional musician here because I'm able to live comfortably, because it's got a decent cost of living here in Columbia, South Carolina, and I was able to get married and have a family. Becoming a teacher was a little bit of it was a stroke of luck in a lot of ways, because it's actually tied into deciding to stay here instead of moving. I was actually going to move back to Los Angeles. But when I decided to stay here, I was like, well, I'm going to need to get a job, at least a part-time job of some sort, to make some money. I remember being close to Christmas as well that particular year. But called up a local music store, and it turned out that the manager and I knew each other from years ago, from working at Peaches Records and Tapes back in the day. But started working there, part-time, just thinking it was a part-time job, and just fell in love with teaching. And personally, I love to study too, I always have, and I know how the things that I like to be taught, or the ways that I like to be taught rather, and I wanted to start experimenting with doing that, being a good teacher for kids, and one thing just led to another, and next thing I know, it's my career, and I love it. It's not as related to playing as you might think. A lot of people think that because, if they know some professional musicians around town that teach, like, wow, you get to play your instrument all day. Well, it's not the same at all. It's a totally different, you've got to, in my opinion, is you've got to have a passion for it too, for not only for kids, because I teach adults as well, but just for trying to help people learn and knowing how to teach them, how to help them to learn, which for me is like, it helps to study yourself too, so going to teachers, asking people questions, some sort of continuing education. They're different sides of the same coin, because not all great, performers on an instrument can be good teachers, and not all good teachers are great performers. But if you care to, to be legit in both those areas, they really do feed each other. When your students find out that you perform, that's always a little bit of, gives you some street cred with them, because they like that, and I don't miss out on that. I realize that that's something that you can use to inspire them, and that's where that's feeding that. And then when I'm playing, I meet people all the time that, like, wow, man, how you doing? Or young kids or parents. I don't often play events where parents get to see me, but it happens occasionally. But regardless, it can end up like, well, I teach as well. If you're interested at all, I'd love to help you, get where you want to go. Let me, just see if we can do it. So they do overlap a little bit, but not as much as you would think as far as like your personal progress in one or the other, because it really is apples and oranges. But they're two very tasty fruits. It's interesting that you're asking a drummer, first of all, because we generally our goals are almost always subservient to the song and or the persons we're working with. We want to support them. So that's always been a big thing for me, is supporting. I also have my own band that we play down at Speakeasy in the 5 Points every Thursday, and wanting that to develop and grow over the years, I keep coming back to I just want everybody that sees us is to have, and this is kind of a reputation that you as a person I think should look for too, or look to have, is help people have a good time. Certainly be an entertainer, but what's involved in that, so us having a good time, people can see that it's genuine, and the people that I play with on Thursdays, Zach Bingham on guitar, Joel Cottrell on vocals, and Phil Jones on bass, Phil Jones. I choose to be with them, because there are other people that are available, and not to say anything bad about those guys, because we don't want to say that in our music community either. But I enjoy being around them. They have good attitudes. They're very professional. They show up. I mean, that's the kind of thing you want to have going on. And then when people see that, hopefully they get a little bit of that. And often people do. I mean, because you can't pretend to be like that. So I guess what I'm always trying to get across, whether I'm playing with them or playing with anyone, and I've learned this lesson from other guys in town too, as far as like appreciating their attitudes, what they're doing, the way that they do it. Be professional, have a good time, keep a youthful attitude. If you were to compare two things, that were contrasting, you'd be able to pick out which one was good or bad. And you say professionalism or non-professionalism. But it's something I've been hammering away at with my students for a while now, because I see that I want them to start exhibiting and assimilating some of these professional habits early, because what they're doing right now is preparing them for how they're going to be the rest of their lives. And I've started, like I'll describe to them, I'm like, well, your reputation with me right now is that you're very talented, but you don't do the work you're supposed to do. Now you're going to be 25, 30 years old. Do you want to still have that same reputation? They're always like, well, no. I'm like, okay, well, let's start working on this. Show up prepared for whatever it may be. We're doing recitals, and we'll pick out songs for them to do. And they're like, oh, I don't really like that song. I was like, well, that makes this even better. You get to prepare a song that you're not really attracted to, but you've got to bring the same level of professionalism to it. They start learning that, and it doesn't take but a time or two where they are not fully prepared and they're playing in front of people, and I'm just standing there with my arms crossed, and I feel like an adult. And I'm like, told you so, So learning the lesson the hard way is usually the best. But showing up prepared, showing up with a good attitude. I don't have to tell my 15-year-olds to have a youthful attitude, but sometimes I have to remind them to have a good time. I often will use in our lessons, I'll put a mirror in front of them. I'm like, look at you while you're playing. You look like you're just not enjoying this whatsoever, and I know you are. So, look like you're having a good time. Be genuine. You don't have to start acting like a clown or anything all of a sudden. But those are the main things. Show up prepared. Have a good time, and the rest kind of takes care of itself. You've done the hard work. The advice that I give to all of my students, again, whether they are imagining themselves being professional musicians one day or not, is to just do your job well. And when we're preparing a solo for their All-State auditions, it's a job. Let's do it so that you do it as well as you can. Let's be prepared. Let's have a good attitude about it, that kind of stuff. And then ultimately, when I'm involving the parents in the conversation, it's being a professional musician isn't that unlike, and this isn't the greatest analogy for them, but being a plumber, or a carpenter, or anybody that provides a service. If you do your job well, it gets known, and then people want to hire you and or work with you in our business. So it's really, just do a good job, and maybe get some advice from people that you respect that can be objective about how well you do your job.